Season's bleatings, everyone. I'm a bit too close to my camera right now, but that's because this little fellow Loki behind me has taken my chair and he won't move. So if half my face is cut off, I'm really sorry, but I can't see myself. So anyway, we're doing my top 10 horror novellas of 2024, and I'm really, really excited about it because I love novellas, and for some reason, apparently, they're a hard sell and a lot of people don't read them. But, you know, they're the perfect length if you're looking for something longer than a short story and shorter than a novel, especially if you haven't got much time and you want to consume a whole story in one go. So as with all my other lists, these are not the books that were necessarily published this year, but they're books that I read for the first time this year. And coming in at number 10, oh, I read 23 novellas through 2024, just for some context, so these are my favourite 10. So number 10 is Neighbourly Mischief by Cristina. I think it's Mirzoi. I think that's how you say the surname. It could be Mirzoi. I'm so sorry, Cristina, if you see this. Please correct me in the comments if I've butchered that. Independently published, I believe. And Christina's little novellas are really interesting because I've also read the Headsman by Cristina, and it was the same sort of thing as this, where, well, no, actually that was a bit different because I couldn't tell. I kept going back and forth with, is it a novella or is it linked short stories? It kind of worked as both, and it was really interesting. And then Neighbourly Mischief is kind of like feels a little bit like separate stories sometimes, but it's all part of like one whole thing. So there's an apartment building and people in the apartment building are getting interviewed because the building manager or the tenant manager or something is dead and or missing, and they're trying to figure out what happened to him. And so this all revolves around like one little period of time, and we're going from like the perspectives of all of these different people that live in the block, and their own relationships with this person that's gone and all of that. And also there might be a rat infestation, there are gangsters of some description, there's money owed, so there's like a whole load of stuff going on. And it was really, really fun because it felt almost a bit like Scooby-Doo trying to unmask like what actually did it and what was even done, because it could have been any of these people, and it was just humorous and just a good time. It was quite light. There were some, you know, like scenes of horror, but it was quite light on the horror and just a bit, I don't know, just really fun, just a really, really fun read. He's given me my chair back. So next up at number 9, I've got The Leaves Forget by Baxter, which was from PS Publishing. And initially I wrote a book review of this and I did have some criticisms. So the first chunk of the book is written in letters and prose. So there's a guy who's not heard from his sister in like a year, but she's quite flaky, so that's not really abnormal. There's not much to worry about. And then he receives a stack of letters from her, which were just delivered to the wrong number apartment because she got the address wrong. And when he starts opening them and he's like reading them in order, he realizes that she isn't just flaking, she's missing. And the letters are telling him about a guy she met, and then he took her to a small little community, a commune some might say. There's some spiritual stuff going on there, and it's very evident in the letters that, you know, she's in danger and she's naively not really seeing it. So that was really, really cool. I think that's about half the book. And so he's reading the letters, and then we've got the letters, so the first person from her, and then his thoughts interjected. So I really enjoyed the structure of that because that was more interesting than just sort of like going back and forth. So then he goes to track her down and he rounds up a couple of other people, family, and they go looking for her and find some stuff. So it was really, really, initially I didn't think this would make my top 10, even though I did enjoy it, but I just haven't forgotten about it. And as you know, I've or as you probably know if you've watched any of my other videos, I've read 124 books this year in total, and I read this one during my mad month of May where I read like 60 books. It was ridiculous. I was trying to catch up on my review requests, so that was a lot of books in a 30-day period. So the ones that I've remembered really distinctly from that have made lists this year, because even though maybe at the time I didn't fully appreciate them, but if they're like repeating round and round in my brain over and over, I've come to like some of them more over time, and this is definitely one. It was the kind of plot that I really enjoy. A bit of a sort of horror mystery about what's going on, you know, high stakes because this is family, and you know, people love each other, and the sister is we already know that she can't really be trusted to make good decisions and things. So yeah, I just didn't know what I was going to find, and it went to like a good climax as well. I really enjoyed where the story went and everything that the author did with it. Number 8, I have a physical copy of this, is The Folly by Gemma Amor by Polis Pub Books. Now Polis has shut its doors, so I think that at the moment this is out of print, but I know that Gemma is re-releasing this through a different press. So this is now the kind of subgenre that isn't my favourite. So I do like ghosts, but that's not normally the kind of book I would choose to pick up over other types of horror, because I find ghosts a bit like the kinds of tropes you get with ghosts are not like the tropes I tend to like. But this, Gemma does people and mental health really well, and I wouldn't say that this is like a mental health story per se. It's not like in the same wheelhouse as Full Immersion was or anything like that, but it's about a woman who's basically just put her adult life on hold for decades because her mum passed away when she was younger from an accident, but her dad was convicted of the murder, and she's never believed that her dad actually did it, but he was put away for it. And so she spent her whole life, you know, campaigning, trying to get him out of jail, and not having, you know, her own substantial romantic relationship. She doesn't have children, and like these are things that she wants, but she just put her life on hold, and that all got pushed aside to prioritize her dad. And then he comes out of prison and they go to live in this Folly. So they're basically kind of caretaking it. It's cheap, it's out of the way, people don't really know them there, because that's an issue obviously for them in their home when he comes out of jail, because a lot of people think he did it. And when they're at this place, peculiar things start to happen, and it was really creepy. So it's ghosty, but it's so much more than ghosty. There were a couple of things that really creeped me out, that like the imagery conjured in this like made me not want to be anywhere near this kind of setting, and I just really enjoyed it. And as always, I always enjoy Gemma's writing, but yeah, this is just a great, this is like pretty close to novel length. I say novella because it's just below 200 pages, but it's long on the novella side, like right between a novella and a novel, I'd say. You may have already seen my review of this, but coming in at number 7 is How I Learned the Truth About Krampus from Tom Johnstone, and this is from Ivanvale Press. So this, in case you didn't see my review, is about a guy who's in letter form writing to his estranged wife following the disappearance or potential death of their baby son. He thinks that Krampus did it, and he's trying to sort of plead his case because obviously people don't believe him. But there is a lot, like this is a small book, but a lot of history about the couple and the man and the baby is packed into it, as well as the lore of Krampus and the Yuletide season. It's a really good little seasonal read, especially, but like I mean, I don't really only read Christmassy books at Christmas, if I'm being honest. I don't think that you don't have to relegate certain books to a certain type of year, but yeah, if you're looking for a cold read, this was perfect, and I really enjoyed it as a little festive treat. Number 6, this is another one that surprised me, because I had criticisms of this one as well when I wrote my review initially, months ago, like 6 months ago. It's Headless by Scott Cole, and I would put this in the extreme horror category, but like the light extreme. So for seasoned extreme horror readers, I don't think this would be very extreme, but for people like me, some of it turned my stomach. So like we're in that kind of range. So I hadn't read any Scott Cole before, and this is such a great story. So basically it rains, there's something weird in the rain, and then all of the men's heads start popping, and they're just popping, but they're walking around, so like people are still just walking around headless, as the title infers. And my criticism of it was just that in the opening scene, when this headlessness is discovered, there's a sexy scene, and the girl didn't notice till she turned the light on that her boyfriend was headless, and I'm already quite a prude with scenes like that in books anyway. I always prefer for them to just not be there at all unless they really serve a really important purpose, because I'm old and grouchy, I guess. I feel embarrassed when I read stuff like that. But I just couldn't get over that she didn't notice he didn't have a head, so that was where I started my written review. But again, as time has gone on, that criticism has just become less and less important to me in the overall scale of how much I enjoyed the book. So so people walk around headless. This is an apocalyptic scenario. There might be some sort of parasite involved, and it was just a really good horror time. There are some really like grisly, horrible scenes in there, some just like really dark stuff, but the overall tone of the book, I guess, is that we're just having like a fun horror time. Like if you're someone that just really revels in a good horror story that's got a bit of blood and some headless people and, you know, some gross, not like gross, but just like stuff that'll like that kind of stuff. Those words I said. So yeah, oh, that was from Grindhouse Press as well, by the way. Sorry, I forgot to say that. So yeah, that's coming in at number 6. Number 5. Funny, because we're on parasites again. It's Writhe by Erica Summers and H.M. Wohl from Rusty Ogre Publishing. So this is a co-written novella. It's, oh god, I really enjoyed this one. So it does have Erica's sense of humor. I haven't read other stuff by H.M. Wohl, but I think that she writes in a different genre typically, but I'm gonna have to check out his stuff anyway. I think I'll make an exception. So Writhe is about a guy that lives in an apartment block. It's overpriced, the apartment's crap, his landlord is your typical like wheeler dealer, twist your arm into things kind of landlord, and our protagonist is just a nice normal guy doing his best, and he kind of gets obligated to look after the landlord's really crappy son in exchange for some money off his rent or something. And then while he's looking after this little twat, he does something, puts a worm in his ear, and from there on the story goes on. So yeah, I've said before, Erica does write about wiggly squiggly things and rats quite a lot. There's a lot of squirming in her stories, and I think that I couldn't tell who had written what part or how they co-wrote it, but it did read like one person had written it. It was very cohesive, and I got dashes of Erica's humour in there, and then like some newness, which I'm assuming, because I'm very familiar with Erica's work at this point. I kind of know an Erica Summers book when I read it now, whereas but I also got that extra dash of like H.M. Wohl, I'm assuming. So it was really well written, and it was just like I'm smiling because like this guy just doesn't deserve what's happening to him at all. He's a nice dude and he keeps nice company, so you don't want anything bad to happen to anyone. And then at some point some cops become involved because there might be some murders happening. And this one again, it's a really fun wiggly horror time. If you're somebody that enjoys, the last two, so Headless as well as goes, so if you're someone that enjoys like parasites, infection type stories, like the spreading of like something that could become an epidemic or a pandemic, something apocalyptic even, and if you enjoy body horror, I think that these like Writhe and Headless would be books that you'd really enjoy. Number 4, I have to do a disclaimer on this one as well. It's Millionaires Day by Kit Power from French Press Publishing. So my little thing I have to tell you, I just want to be upfront, is that I was involved with the marketing of this book. So Kit Power is, as if you've watched my channel for any length of time, you'll know that I'm a Kit Power super fan. I have read, bought and reviewed every single thing that he's written, including his non-fiction, and I was really excited to get Millionaires Day. So, and also Kit's a friend, so those aren't the disclaimers. The disclaimer is that the guy who runs French Press Publishing is Steve Kozanowski, and I work for Steve as his assistant, so I'm not like technically part of the press per se. I'm not, you know, like a co-owner of French Press Publishing or anything, but I do, you know, like I proofread stuff and send out review requests and that kind of stuff, and help Steve with his like day-to-day admin and things like that, you know, the behind the scenes kind of stuff. So I did proofread this book, so I did get to read it before it was released, obviously, and also helped with like the release. So that's my involvement in it. I don't get anything financial out of it though, like I don't get a royalty cut or anything like that. So I just want to make it really clear, because people will know that I have some sort of like bookish involvement with Kit and also with the press. I just wanted to clarify that I'm not promoting this because I'm going to get any sort of monetary gain out of it. Promoting it because I love Kit Power and I love his work and I love this book. So this is about a fateful day in 2019, right before Christmas. You might all remember this. You know, the what's basically become sort of a national urban legend is the day that everyone woke up with a case containing £1 million, unless you didn't happen to be asleep that night for some reason, as I wasn't, because I was at work doing a night shift. And then the absolute carnage that ensued, because there were a lot of people that realised other people had cases, so you know, their million wasn't going to be enough, and there was like a whole spike of crime and all of that stuff. So this explores the stories of a few select people that are like kind of connected to each other in some ways, and like what happened. So it happens over the course of just a couple of hours, the whole book. It's very heart-wrenching because this is a very real world story, and parts of it are really horrific. And basically, I guess what I would take from this is it's about greed and selfishness, and yeah, kind of like how some people are wired with their priorities, I guess. As always from Kit, the writing is outstanding and the storytelling is outstanding. It was a really unique book to read. I don't think that there's anything else like it. I've never read anything else like this. It's a standout because I don't even know. I guess this would be like crime horror is how I would describe it, but it is quite different to anything else I've read. And I can't believe I didn't review this earlier. I've been meaning to make a video on it for months and months and months, and I actually did try to upload one, but I don't know what happened to my video, but it's gone. But yeah, hopefully this one will stay, and yeah, and hopefully you can hear my ramblings about Millionaires Day. But yeah, it's another excellent, outstanding 5-star read for me. I think everything Kit's done has been 5 stars for me. He can't go wrong. Number 3 is Inkvine by Elizabeth Broadbent from Undertaker Books, and I just loved it. I think she described it as a sapphic gothic novella. I think that's what the wording, and it's about a young woman who lives in this really tiny town, so like the kind of place where like everyone knows everyone and everyone knows everybody's business. And she lives in a trailer with a couple of family members, and she works as an exotic dancer, and her family are extremely judgmental about it, and they're constantly shaming her and making comments about how she's like ruined the family name, but they've got no problem taking her money, demanding her money, paying their bills and buying their luxuries with her money. And she's very lonely and isolated, and people are just assholes to her. And there's this swamp that people are not supposed to go into. There are like rumors about this swamp, but she goes there and she finds it peaceful, and she meets a really mysterious woman there, and they develop like it's kind of like an infatuation, but it's deeper. It like it does feel like love, like that's the way it's heading. And there was a scene that made me blush a little bit, like it's a little sexual just in one part, but it was just again light on the horror side, depending on how you take the ending, because I would be scared if I was having to make such a leap of faith as our character is. But I just thought it was so lovely and beautiful, and there are parts of it that are horrific and nerve-wracking, but I just really, it just was so deep. It was so full of subtext, and I think that it was written from a really nice place on the part of the author. I just felt, I don't know, I just loved it. I just thought it was just so beautiful. I just absolutely loved it. And again, that was really unique and something really different for me all year. And I read that back in May, and I've been thinking about it ever since, and I knew it was going to be on this list as soon as I read it. And yes, so that's the number 3 spot. Number 2, Into the Wild Green Yonder by Tim Lebbon and Peter Crowther. So this is such a weird story. So a couple needing to buy a home, and the wife is pregnant with their first child, and so they, they've been married like a few years, but they're not decades or anything. And they're looking around this house, and the wife absolutely, this is an absolute no. Like, the house is so disgusting and such a fixer-upper and just so outdated, and it's gross and icky and sticky and disgusting, and she doesn't even bother touring the house. Like, she's got no intention of living there. And the husband finishes looking around, but he does acknowledge it's disgusting. And like, the one selling point is that the garden is huge and beautiful. It does need work, but it's big. And then the next thing you know, like, they go from absolutely not, I would never live there, and then the next chapter they've bought the house and they're moving into it. So I was like, oh my god, something about that house is not right, because who would live there? It's so well described to us as an absolute pit. And maybe if you're someone that flips houses, or you're someone that has a very limited budget and you can do a lot of the work yourself, maybe this would be a good project. But this is like what I would think is a nightmare for a young married couple who are expecting their first child. Just not ideal. And then he doesn't really know where to start with the house repairs and stuff, so he decides to start with the garden. As good a place as any. And then he finds that he can't get out of the garden, and it's just really anxiety and stress inducing. And I just couldn't figure out what the F you meant to do. I always try to think my way out of the problem when I'm reading stories like this, and everything I thought of, he was thinking of, and it was all getting thrown in his face. It was just so stressful. But I do like to feel strongly when I'm reading a book, and it was very also like the mystery of what is happening here. Like, why is this garden like this? Why is it doing it to him? Does it do it to everybody? Is there anyone else that he's going to find? It's kind of like, if he tries to step towards the house gets further away, and the garden won't allow him to go in any direction apart from where it wants him to go. So, and it's getting bigger by the second. This garden is getting very vast around him all of a sudden, things. So, and he does find some stuff, which I won't spoil, but it was really, really unique and really enjoyable, and just so weird, and the premise is so scary to me. I can't imagine being able to see my husband near the back door and he can't hear or see me. It's just so scary. And that means my number one spot, and you might guess this if you saw my review, is this one I can't pronounce, that I've had to keep trying to pronounce over and over. Vacances. It's the title's in French because it's set in France, but this is an English language book by Phil Sloman from Alchemy Press, and it's about a couple who go on a little romantic getaway to this little to like a little Airbnb on a farm in France, and the husband's like real happy with it, but the wife is not happy immediately. That she thinks that the Airbnb owner has designs on her husband and doesn't like her, and then also the woman's mother is there and she's a little off, and the wife is seeing and hearing scary stuff that her husband seems oblivious to. So it's one of those stories of like she's trying to convince him and you're getting very frustrated with him, even though it's understandable that he's not buying what she's telling him because it's outrageous, but we're in her perspective, so we're along for her ride. And it's very short, but there's a lot in here. There's an entire world of something in this little village going on here, and I loved it, and I would love to read more. I'd love to read more from this town, although I do think that like Phil's done like a perfect length story for this though, but I at the same time I would read spin-offs, prequels, novelizations, scripts, film, just go the whole hog, Phil. So yes, this is my #1 novella of 2024. I know that this one wasn't published this year. Most of the ones on my list were. This one was published a few years ago, and I can't believe I didn't have it until now, and I'm really happy it came into my life. This isn't a festive read or anything, but I do think it's a good seasonal read for like the colder winter rainier months. It's like it's got that I mean, it won't make you feel cozy, but it's a good horror story to read if you want to be cozy and read with a lamp or something, if you know what I mean. That was my top 10 favourite novella. Sleigh bells ring, are you listening? Subscribe or Kaylee's blood will be glistening. Da-da-da-da. See you next time, bleed!